And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
We go, ladies and gentlemen, on a Tuesday post-NFL draft. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. We got so much to discuss, recapping the NFL draft and also some shakeups in Major League Baseball with new managers. We're all here for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I was thinking about it because there were a lot of teams that addressed exactly the issues that they had. And I, for one, I'm going to break it down here all for you here on the show. And I think it's incredible. It is incredible with how when you watch teams, and more in particular for a few reasons, because number one is you could tell how teams are shaping their rosters based upon the rosters of need. And I think with all these teams that addressed a lot of problems on their roster, it's better for them. Like the Raiders go and get Fernando Mendoza. It was a obvious pick, and they got their quarterback for the future. Now, all of us are all asking the same similar questions. Will this equate to the Raiders turning the new page and shaping the culture in which it needs to be better? Now, those are all valid questions. And I think for the way in which Clint Kubiak is going about it, with how this team is built top to bottom, and then what it'll look like in the near future, will depend on it. Now, remember, this is not a win-now mode for the Raiders. But what this is this allows them now to build, reshape their culture, and really trust the coaching staff and the front offices to build this team. So I thought the Raiders did a fantastic job getting Jermod McCoy in the 4th round, who we know is going to require another surgery, but at least you're not rushing him out onto the field by the time that he's going through rehab and recovery, and he will be perfect for this Raiders secondary. And there are lots of other things that they addressed. I also really did like the Jets and the Bucks. I think a couple teams, I really enjoyed their draft. I think the Giants did better. Arvell Reese and CeCe Mauinoa, I think they did a fantastic job. And the Jets, here's the thing. You could say what you want to about this organization, but foundationally, they are shaping for a brighter future when the quarterback or the coach comes into play. I don't know what Aaron Glenn is going to look like this next up-and-coming year, but all I know is foundationally the offensive line looks better. You go and get a dual tight end set now with Kenyon Sadiq, and they go and get a slot receiver in Omar Cooper. So I think the Jets really handled this draft very, very well, and it goes to show that teams that do this, it's more for several different purposes. Because number one, this team's trying to get better. They are not here to outright try to compete and win for the division because their foundation is not quite established. But that's okay. And teams that do this, it makes sense. Like the Raiders go and get their franchise quarterback, and they go and get a bunch of other pieces, that it makes sense. The Jets get their foundation, and they continue to build upon it. They go and get David Bailey, Kenyon Sadiq, Omar Cooper, and multiple other really good draft picks. Then there's even some of the steals, and I'll get to a little bit more up and onto that. But I really enjoyed the draft. I think a lot of it was positions of need, scheme sets, and I think ultimately it comes down to fits. So I thought every team all addressed their issues, and I think for some teams, they're still kind of hoping, rolling the dice, gambling on it, that they figured out their problems. So I thought this was interesting to bring up. But many people are questioning a lot about the Ty Simpson pick to the LA Rams. I'm not questioning it at all. And I know a lot of people go back to the narrative of, well, he had fewer starts. He had 15 starts in college, which is valid to have that point. But I'm going to give you something else. Of the quarterbacks who went into the first round who had less than 15 starts in college, of those quarterbacks, how many of them were successful? Because of the amount of starts, but it's not just the starts. Sometimes you can get misconstrued by that. What about the fits? Were they in the right organization? Did they have the right coach? Did they have the right scheme build? Zach Wilson out of BYU kind of felt more like smoke and mirrors. And you saw that very quickly the minute in which the Jets, Robert Saleh, I love him as a coach, but New York has not figured out their franchise quarterback since Joe Namath. And that's been an ongoing issue for years. What about Mitch Trubisky? Well, here's the thing. Mitch came into a situation in which Matt Nagy, an offensive-minded coach, comes in to a defensively stacked Chicago team with Khalil Mack, Danny Trevathan, Eddie Jackson, Adrian Amos. They had a lot of really good players. And it was a stacked roster. But the thing was, you saw what Mitch Trubisky really was by the time the talent left, and he's just this average quarterback. I could see that from a mile away. I didn't see many of the wow traits with him. Meanwhile, you got Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in the same draft, and you decide to end up reaching with a pick like that. Ty Simpson's different. And I think this is probably the best situation for both parties. Let's start with Ty Simpson. 15 starts in college. He's at Alabama. How many Alabama quarterbacks have come into the league and they were outright successful? The only outlier into this conversation is Jalen Hurts. But he went from Alabama to Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma. And when it came to Tua Tagovailoa, he was talented, and this was before the injuries and all, and the hip injury happened. And to me, I think Tua stood a chance the minute Mike McDaniel came in and refined his skill set. But he had quick accuracy. He had the ability to see what's there up and in front of him, even though he's small, can't quite see over the offensive line and the defense with the pass rush, but he's able to distribute the ball out quickly. And the other thing is, A.J. McCarron dealt with injury problems. It's inevitable. Greg McElroy didn't quite pan out that much out of Bama. People are all like, well, look at Mac Jones. Well, Mac Jones, when he had his rookie season, was a Pro Bowler, and then they took away the offensive coordinator and switched it with a defensive-minded coach to be an offensive coordinator. And that really turned upside down. So I think with Mac Jones, he looks a lot better, and I think looks very competent. But if you give him at least a starting job somewhere, maybe we might get a second chance here. But the point is that a lot of these SEC quarterbacks, not all of them, but a lot of these SEC quarterbacks have either one, actually have thrived, or two, wore out in college, and now they're backups. And listen, Joe Burrow, you come into LSU, and he came out of an Ohio State program coming into LSU, coached by Ed Orgeron, and that entire offense was stacked. But Joe was the best pick, okay? And so then you look at, well, what about Stetson Bennett? Well, look at what's happening with the Rams. Stetson Bennett gave you 2 years in winning national titles at Georgia with Kirby Smart, but he's backing up Matt Stafford. He didn't quite strive for a starting job, did he? So he was a backup for a reason. And when I look at Ty Simpson with this, number one, he's accurate. I don't care what anybody says. He's accurate, can distribute the ball in many different places, and is also already in a pro-style offense when you're in the SEC. That's what they're predicated to, because all of the skill sets are all SEC-based, and they are all NFL talented teams. So I think with Ty Simpson, he's in a better situation, because who wouldn't want to be coached by Sean McVay? And I know, everybody wants to say, oh, well, Sean McVay wasn't happy with the pick, but sometimes you kind of have a change of heart. And look, like businesses, I'm sure this was an uncomfortable conversation the minute in which Les Snead made that decision and made the pick. And I understand, like, coaches and GMs may not see eye to eye in certain things, but I understand why Les Snead did this. Because number one is, what happens if you go and win a Super Bowl with Matt Stafford and he retires? Who is your future quarterback? And by the way, you'll be the last pick in the draft. While amongst all the quarterbacks next year, Dante Moore, Arch Manning, John Mateer, all these other quarterbacks come into this draft, and you don't have your future franchise? So I understand what Les Snead was doing, because then here's the other thing. If Matt Stafford, hypothetically, let's say he's injured by week 1, and he may be potentially out for a season, you're going to trust Stetson Bennett after all those years? I mean, yes, he can be a season backup, and I mean, that's the same way that you would look at with Jimmy Garoppolo, but you got to have a next in line. It's not overtaking Matt Stafford's job. It's more preparing the way for when Stafford rides up and onto the sunset after a Super Bowl win. Then now Ty getting coached by Sean McVay and helping a little more of his pocket awareness, because again, in order for him to distribute the ball, he has to have the time in the pocket. He has to be able to. And we watched that in Alabama, because the minute that Indiana and Fernando Mendoza came into town, there was pass rushes left and right. They couldn't stop it. And then you got the blind side trying to defend, and you got a run game that in the interior is getting obliterated. That's what Ty Simpson he needs. But Ty also has to learn the speed of the NFL. So make quicker decisions. Find a way to distribute the ball better. Maybe work on a little more refine and touch on the ball. But people to say that 13, like when people I hear say the Rams reached, in what aspect? They reached because of the pick number, or did they reach because they could have addressed something else? Because, yeah, right tackle would have been a pick that they would have figured out. A receiver would have been another one. I heard a lot of times about Mekhi Lemon, but in the end, the Rams have lots of resources. And so they're not afraid to go out and search and address those resources. But you got to think about this. If the Rams don't find the franchise quarterback next year, if they win a Super Bowl, they could really be screwed. So that's why they went with the Ty Simpson pick. And forget it with Sean McVay not being happy with the pick. Okay, it will take time for people to warm up. When you end up getting a new boss, I mean, yes, it is difficult to adapt, but take time. Allow the boss to getting to know you. Allow him to, you could point that out, whether or not he's going to be really better to work with, or maybe this is just going to go downhill. But you got to allow for that to happen. You got to be able to experiment on it. So I think that's what, the Rams, and Les Snead's been in this business and he's been in this job for as long as he has, and so has Sean McVay. And they both have built a very tight relationship. But we know some bosses can sometimes throw a curveball, and that's exactly what it looked like with Sean McVay. But I understand why Les Snead did this, and it will take time, but Sean McVay will warm up to the idea soon. So, again, I don't think it was a reach. I think maybe people would say the 13th pick, may have felt like a reach, but did it? Because Bo Nix was picked 12 by the Broncos, a couple years ago, and people said that was a reach. Was it? They got their future franchise quarterback, and Sean Payton was already done with Russell Wilson. And now Denver is thriving in this because they got a great defense. They're not paying their quarterback, and he's got a playoff win. So there has to be validation in this. So that's the way that I look at it. I think because the Rams, yes, they could have addressed other areas. They addressed the quarterback because they feel like if we win a Super Bowl, we will never have a franchise quarterback because all of the 5 could get drafted all within the high to mid-tier first round. They're not going to be late first rounders. I mean, it's not every day that you're going to have a situation in which Lamar Jackson just so happens to be bypassed by every other team and he lands to the Ravens. You're not going to have that situation every single year. It doesn't pan out that way. Okay, so it's the NFL. Anything can happen and anything can change. So coming up next, there were teams that I've really raised my eyebrow at because even though there was one pick I really liked that was a steal of the draft, but this team, I don't even know what to think of it. And everybody is all saying the same things. Analysts, media personnel, radio hosts, they're all saying the same things. So I'll tell you exactly what team that is that could be very questionable walking into the new year right after this. And also shakeups in Major League Baseball with managers already fired. Yep. Rob Thompson and Alex Cora, gone, fired, out of here. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. All right, folks. Well, first and foremost, has been fantastic. And all of you did too. But of course, as we start, the potential NFL season, and we're already ending April and we're in May. Well, if you still haven't figured out how to control your nicotine craving, which can be the most difficult, especially when you're out there in the summer and, especially when it's stressful times and then all of a sudden it just kicks in. I know all about it. Just ask my wife. She's been through it. Hardest time. But we've got the solution that really can help out. And a company based out of California, that is Slapple. Slapple nicotine gum. It is the alternative to help you to quit smoking or quit chewing. Or, and in this case in Colorado, because the leading cause of death in the United States is lung cancer now, and that all amounts to vaping. Yes. So the newest law is that they're outlawing vapes now to teenagers because it's harsh chemicals, it's dangerous, and can really take a toll on your lungs. So join in on the movement and find the alternative to slap your cravings with Slapple today. 21 plus. Product contains nicotine, which can be a highly addictive substance, and choose an alternative and choose Slapple today.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
So, this team really raised my eyebrow a ton, even though they had one steal of the draft. And I'm sure a lot of people, in fact, analysts and radio guys, couldn't even believe their eyes. And even just seeing with what this team, they're so highly dependent on the superstars on their roster. So San Francisco came into this draft and only one steal of the draft. And a lot of these other picks, I'm not bashing on any of these picks. I think, I wanted to see all of them succeed. But these were questionable because of the roster build they have right now. And what that told you was, from top to bottom on all these picks, is they are highly dependent on a few names: Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, and Fred Warner and Trent Williams. 5 players on that roster who we know are getting up in age, who have had a history of injuries. And when you look at all the teams that addressed a lot of their issues, and they've addressed a lot of their positions, most of them all were they're very highly effective. And that's what I'm trying to figure out about the San Francisco 49ers, because to me, the only one steal of the draft that they pulled away was Romello Heights from Texas Tech. That's the only pick I loved that the Niners picked, because number one, he's strong and he can force the football out of anybody's hands. And I think if you pair that up with a healthy Bosa, then that right there is going to feed families. But outside of all of that, I just don't understand. And I thought, to me personally, the Niners, and a lot of it is that they address this in free agency, but Mike Evans, he's closer to on his way out the door. And Christian Kirk, when has he had a full healthy season? John Lynch for the last couple of years has been so questioned about these reaches. And there's no team that has reached more than the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, I when I looked at that receiver that they picked, I'm like, what? Why? And there weren't any better options? Like, I'm not bashing on the kid, but there weren't any better talented options. And so San Francisco now is kind of under some heat. Now, I get it. They are so predicated and so trustworthy, and all those 5 that I mentioned in Brock Purdy. Okay, so the thing is that the Niners, they are so dependent in Kyle Shanahan out scheming everybody. But how long can you do that until you have a plethora of injuries and all of a sudden this don't look right. Listen, this is no Robert Saleh as a DC anymore. You now have Raheem Morris. And I'm not saying he's going to do a terrible job, but the point is, Robert Saleh came into this job last year knowing there is a lot of leaks we have to patch because he's getting the best out of a lot of these players that are 4th, 5th, 6th string players and turning them into B+, A- players. But that only can work for so long until eventually it picks up after you. I mean, you just saw the you just saw the utter dominance from Seattle in the playoffs. And look, that game against Philadelphia looked pretty bad on both ends, but with Seattle, they were running all over them. So San Francisco only has X amount of time. Now, the only thing that's given them a break is Arizona, because I don't understand the Jeremiah Love pick. And at the same time, like, I just think San Francisco, they have just been reaching like crazy. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why that John Lynch is kind of in this point. But for next year, Kyle Shanahan, we know, can be under some serious scrutiny for this year, because with no Robert Saleh, what are you going to do? I mean, if these guys go down by injuries and this is your depth, just understand and just realize this could look a lot worse than what it's looking like up and on paper the minute you're out on the field. Time now for the news.
And now, here we go. Hey, everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
The latest in Major League Baseball is both these managers just earlier this week have been fired due to the lack of offensive capability and even for the pitching staff. So the Phillies have fired Rob Thompson, and the Red Sox have fired Alex Cora after a not so great start to the season. And it's leaving many people questioning about both the general managers between Dave Dombrowski and Craig Breslow. And they are now looking for new managers, looking for new inputs and insights at the manager position. And we'll see exactly what will happen in days to come. But the Red Sox, though, they definitely cleaned house. There was a ton of firings, not only the manager, but 5 others that also ended up leaving as well. So, first of all, my biggest thing about both of these firings is, number one, the Red Sox, and I've heard a lot of really bad comments when it came to Craig Breslow running business in Boston, because there was not, and listen, sometimes general managers can sometimes get a little bit of luck here and there. But after the Rafael Devers trade, yes, the Red Sox made the postseason, and Roman Anthony is a great player, and you've got a ton of really good talent up from here, but they did not strike as they should have. And so now it's leaving a lot of people questioning about Craig Breslow's way of roster building, and this is not looking good. So the Red Sox will have to figure it out. But for the Phillies, I mean, Dave Dombrowski, I think, definitely is going to be under some scrutiny, because this is too good of a roster to be underperforming, and everybody's panicking up and into the first month. Like, I get it. It's 162 games a year, but you're panicking in the first month of the season. So, but this is a talented roster to not have any excuses of performing this way. So I'll discuss a little bit more about that here down the stretch as we get through the news. But so some interesting news up from here. So Bruce Cassidy, who was up and on the panel with NHL Tonight on TNT, during the Stanley Cup playoffs. And he ended up having some words to say about the Vegas Golden Knights as they tied the series against Utah. What a remarkable comeback up from here. But here's what he had to say about the tenure and what really happened 74 games in before the fire.
We're delighted you're here. I'm not going to lie. We're a little surprised you're here. The news at the end of the season with 8 games left, we were surprised. We were stunned. Were you surprised by the move?
Yeah, you grind for 74 games and, you want to be there at the end, right? That's the payoff, right? Playing for the cup, getting your name on the cup again. So, but Vegas, they have their standards. They felt we weren't there, so they made a change. And great guys in that locker room, great players. So, I'm excited for the guys, but disappointed I didn't get a chance to finish the job with them.
Listen, we're delighted.
Do you feel because you'd won a cup there that you maybe deserved the opportunity to try to right the ship? And I mean, it wasn't even off that course that bad, right? I mean, you guys were still in a playoff position, and obviously where things in the Pacific were tightening up. But do you feel like they lacked a little bit of loyalty in that situation?
Well, I would have liked to see it through. I'll definitely see that. We'd won once before, so we know what it looked like to win. We were a first to second place team most of the year. I felt we would have, got in. I don't know where we would have finished at the end. That's, speculation, but.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Bruce Cassidy is going to have an awful lot of phone calls by the time the offseason comes around. And maybe Edmonton, because right now it's not looking good against the Anaheim Ducks. And, you think about teams that are built together, and they're really looking forward to. They are seriously looking forward to that. If this is not working with their managers, guess what? They're canning them, and they're giving a call to Bruce Cassidy and going, "We have the pieces. We can address more, but we need you here as a catalyst to really shape up this whole thing." Because to me, I think the Toronto Maple Leafs would be all over Bruce Cassidy. I think the Edmonton Oilers would love to have Bruce Cassidy. So there is all of these things that can really shape up for a culture and for a roster. And so I just think with Bruce Cassidy expressing, and look, he's being honest. He would have loved to have finished the season. And of course, it hits me dear to my heart. As a Vegas native and as also a soft spot for the Golden Knights, but it happens. Businesses, they can sometimes be cutthroat and they can be brutally honest with you. And if things are not going their way, and especially when you have a cup aspirated team, like, you cannot afford to underperform. So that's just inexcusable in itself. But yeah, I don't have a problem with it. So at least he was honest. So I loved it. And again, he's not going to go without a job. All right. That's it for the news.
And now, here we go. Hey, everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
So a month into the Major League Baseball season, and already we're getting so many freakout sessions and so much of just utter disappointments. 2 managers fired, and one team in particular I talked about previously on the program is one that really is feeling, I guess you could say, just the disappointment, the embarrassment, changes, of course, because 2 of their start players, or 3, did not end up performing, and they let 1 player go. So you could just all right, we'll play the audio. I apologize for my radio audiences here, but here is New York media when it comes to the New York Mets. Take a listen.
The freaking Rockies, who are the epitome of bad baseball. And here we are, the New York Mets, one of the highest payrolls in baseball, embarrassing themselves at home in front of 7 fans in the same day doubleheader. They scored 1 run for those 7 fans who sat there for these 2 games. 1 run. They stink. And if I wasn't on the radio, I'd use another word to describe the 2026 Mets. They stink, top to bottom. They stink. It's embarrassing. I've been a Met fan for over 40 years. I've seen some bad baseball as a Met fan. This is the worst baseball I've seen, especially with a bunch of guys who have, let's face it, have had good to great careers all on the same roster. And it starts at the top. To Steve Cohen, grow a pair of cojones, and start laying the law down. This is unacceptable. This is...
Listen, this is why New York media is very brutally honest. And if you're not performing up to the standard that everybody wants you to end up being, it becomes harder. It becomes harder for your team, the players, and again, I think, the Mets, and everybody's all saying, be patient, but you just watched the Phillies fire Rob Thompson and the Red Sox fire Alex Cora and 5 other people in the building. Now, granted, I don't think Dave Dombrowski is very, cutthroat, like what I think Craig Breslow is. But at the same time, I understand the urgencies. But however, it's 162 games a year. Do you know how many times the Dodgers really care about April, May, June? How about you go and grab yourself a donut? That's how much they care. They don't. Okay, you could go ahead and say the Dodgers have ruined baseball, whatever. Go ahead and cling to your feelings with that. But let me be honest with you. It's teams who address their issues and have addressed their problems. You can see the difference in what they look like. I mean, look, I'm here in Colorado, and people ultimately were nagging on the Rockies, poking and really saying their stuff. And I'm not saying that the Rockies are going to shock everybody very highly like that, but the truth is they improved. I mean, they've improved vastly. And right now, they're right behind San Francisco, Arizona, and only 4 games away, about 6 games from the Padres. And I think, between San Diego and the Dodgers have their winning record, but they don't care about April. It's like more of, we are waiting to get fully healthy and getting going, and we're going to end up competing by the time September and October are around the corner. But when you look at the NL East, I mean, it is kind of interesting to see both the Phillies and the Mets not performing to their best, while you have the Nationals, the Marlins, and the Braves winning right now, leading the division. And the Braves right now are leading the division. So isn't that nuts? And here's the thing, the Miami Marlins, this is the best start in 17 years. So again, there is no excuses for the Philadelphia Phillies to not compete and to not perform better than what is advertised. And again, you have Bryce Harper, you got Kyle Schwarber, you got Trey Turner. Like, what is the issue? And I think a lot of this is because ever since, and I'm going to take a stab at this, but ever since that we had the Moneyball effect from Billy Beane with the A's, analytics and statistics have constantly gotten misconstrued over the last several years because everybody wants to cling on to probables and numbers and all of that. And listen, I'm a math fanatic, but don't overcomplicate simple math. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, Rob Thompson, in my opinion, I had gotten no pure aggression as a manager. I didn't. Because, like I said, right after the World Series is you need to cross your fingers and hope that you don't end up getting a contract extension to a guy that, truthfully, out of the managers I've watched over the years, like, just be like a Barry Switzer. That's really what Rob Thompson is. He's a Barry Switzer in Major League Baseball because he's trying to ride the ship. You've got Bryce, you've got Schwarber. Yeah, the only thing is when it comes to pitching, Philadelphia, I mean, it's good, but it's not equating to right now their wins, and they're 10.5 games back of first from Atlanta. Now, again, it's only the first month, but Philadelphia's got to do a better job than this. And by the way, I'm surprised nobody's even talking about right now the Astros being 4.5 games back from the A's. So it's a month of baseball. Everybody's going to have their freak out sessions. But the Red Sox, I mean, they didn't get aggressive enough. And a lot of that started from the top. And then for the Phillies, it's the Phillies and Mets. I mean, if the Phillies fired their manager, what's that going to say about Carlos Mendoza for the Mets moving forward? And many people are pushing for Carlos Beltran to be the manager, and which I could be okay with that. But, you know, you got to be able to address these things. And at the same time, like these massive contracts, playing for one position, and for the Mets, you're constantly throwing money willy-nilly and trying to, you know, compete, and it's constantly ending up in the similar result. You're not playing your best. And none of the lineups or the pitching is even equating to them winning games. Because here's the thing. If you want to be mad at the Dodgers for having the resources that they do to afford for players, here's what you're also misconstruing. They got Miguel Rojas, and he's going to end up retiring after this year. Max Muncy, anybody could have signed him, but they chose not to. And you know who's really tearing it up for the Dodgers right now? Is a young center fielder named Andy Pages. Okay, that's the only person on the roster that's making stuff happen. And the Dodgers are okay with that because you can go ahead, go up and on a tear, and see where it leads you. But I got to be honest. I mean, teams that don't, sometimes I look at their personnel and I'm going, you know, do they have the right personnel minds to see, to truthfully look at this and see what it is? I don't know if they do, but if you know what's funny is, I mean, Pat Murphy, who we had up and onto the show, expressed it so much because of the salary cap deals, ceiling and floor. And then on top of it, when you come to realizations of scouting and roster building, they need to take some pointers. But again, Phillies are a good enough team to not be performing well. That's inexcusable. The Mets are the Mets. The Red Sox, you didn't get aggressive enough. And I question a lot about Craig Breslow. So, yeah, not a good look. And does that equal with Carlos Mendoza maybe potentially being fired? We'll never know until we get up to that point. So, going to take a break. We'll come right back here onto the Snake Sports Talk Show.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
So if any of you were in Nashville and you got a chance to see Agoge Fight League 12, what a fantastic turnout it was. All of the fights were fantastic, and I thought there were a couple of them it was so electrifying. They'd done a fantastic job. Absolutely loved the partnership with them to be able to interview the fighters and just really put on a great show. So I'm definitely ready for the next event coming soon. But, going back to the NFL, there were a couple teams that I felt like, in my opinion, when I look at, because again, when you look at roster builds, I look at, are you primed for this up and coming season, or are you primed more for the future? So the Giants, in my opinion, with Arvell Reese, CeCe Mauinoa, and I think, a couple options that I thought were really good. You could just tell from the immediate impact that I think that John Harbaugh is about to have for the Giants. And again, like his brother Jim, and I'll get to him in a minute, but they both work within the trenches. And so in the offseason, they got a tight end, they gotten an offensive line, they had gotten a couple really good defensive players, and that's what John Harbaugh does. And I understand with Baltimore, they need a new vision, they needed a new coach, they needed a new direction, because in the end, it's been 18 years. And nobody's going to really say much about that. And much like for the Steelers, because Mike Tomlin's been in this business for 19 years, and it was a time for a new chapter for them too. But what I look at with all of these rosters, because the teams right now that are built to win are the Rams. I would also say the Kansas City Chiefs. I loved with what they picked up with Mansour Delane. They also got the edge rusher from Oklahoma, and, they got themselves really good picks, and they're very impactful. And this will be one that'll turn the page. And they had a down year, and they're going to be built back up again. That's what Kansas City does. They address up these problems. They address up all of the issues they need, and then they go out and they're fine. Honestly, the one team that nobody is talking about as far as future and foundation is the Cleveland Browns. So here's what I have to say about Cleveland. You could say what you want to about Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, and the quarterback position. I understand all of it. Deshaun Watson has this last chance to really prove himself before he's out of the building. And I think everybody in Cleveland all cannot wait until he's out of the building. And so, to me, Cleveland, if you watched every one of these picks, these were all foundational picks. Spencer Fanu at tackle, because they were moving on from Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, and a bunch of other offensive linemen that just they kind of closed the book. They also get themselves a really, really good wide receiver, because they go and get Casey Concepcion, and they go out and they end up getting Denzel Boston. Like, those are two really good receivers. Now, granted, I think Casey Concepcion, the only question mark that I have is, can he overcome his drops? But once you get into the league and you're coached and you're ready to roll, you will be fine. There's no question whatsoever that this team could figure it out. But Spencer Fanu, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, I can't even believe he fell that far. Justin Jefferson, the linebacker, and then Taylon Green, by the way. I have been really screaming this out, but this is part of the reason why in which I love Andrew Berry, because he is trying to tell you that amongst the dysfunction in Cleveland, he is a really good GM. He accumulated picks. By the way, he ended up getting the pick from Jacksonville who they traded away, and now that allows him to go and address these positions. So that's where I think everybody's like, oh, Cleveland at Cleveland. You could go ahead and think that way, but I think roster build, if they could get the quarterback right, Harold Fannin, Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Sampson, and you already got receivers like Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy and Isaiah Bond, and you add in Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston, like this is a really good roster. So, and I think all of this is because you not only are making Myles Garrett happy, but you also are pushing for every ounce of juice that you got in Deshaun Watson because he has to work. There's no other choice. You're paying him, so you hope that either he thrives or it's crash and burn. And everybody knows that was terrible business, but what that is signaling to is it's not Andrew Berry. It's 50-50 on Kevin Stefanski, but we'll see what Todd Monken does. But it's all on Jimmy Haslam. And I've been saying that from the get-go. I don't like their ownership. And you could tell by the way in which Andrew Berry drafted. He drafted for potential. He drafted for a strong foundation. So that's what he's doing. And I applaud Cleveland for that. That is a really, really strong draft. I thought Cleveland came out of it. The Jets came out of a really good situation for their side. And then the Giants and Kansas City, there were a bunch of teams that were able to address up their issues. And they addressed up a lot of different positions. So I was thinking about this. But as far as when the season starts, there is no quarterback right now that is under an immense amount of pressure and has to do it by this year, or there's going to be several questions. It's Justin Herbert of the Chargers. So what the Chargers ended up doing, and this was classic Jim Harbaugh, is there were no reaches. Every single one of them were scheme-fitted picks, and every single one of them have high upside value. And what this is, they also turn five of the five picks that were already started, they turned those into 8 picks immediately. And that's all in the work of Joe Ortiz. Because if you look at it from the last 2 drafts that Joe Ortiz has been a part of, okay, they have gotten some dudes. And these guys are late rounders because if you really recall, Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still were 5th round players, and they are thriving on this roster. They done fantastic. And these are underrated, under the radar guys. We know with what Ladd McConkey was because of the fact of his high upside, and it allowed him now to be a part of an offense and where he was an immediate impact for this team. But Akeem Mesidor, I really love the pick because this one, they got a speedy edge rusher, which is what they needed on their roster and on their rotation for the last couple of years because Khalil Mack's going to end up retiring after this year. You can move on from Bud Dupree at any point in time, but Kyle Kennard, you're hoping that he becomes a hit. Tuli Pelotu, like he's coming off of a career season. And I think Akeem Mesidor, they really struck gold on that. Jake Slaughter, here's the one thing I love about this is because he's a center/guard, and you can plug him and play him in a situation in which Jake Slaughter barely gave up pressures, barely gave up sacks. And that allows for Justin Herbert to have time in the pocket to pass. And he can be the future center after Tyler Biadasz because you can go and continuously upgrade and address the offensive line. And I think he could very much become a day one starter when all things go well. They also got the fastest wide receiver in the draft in Brennan Thompson, who I think has very good hands and also is fast. And to me, if he could really come up well as a special teamer, they would have hit. Nick Barrett, the defensive tackle they got from South Carolina, I mean, on top of the many really good up front South Carolina defensive front, Nick Barrett is really good. And he's familiar with Kyle Kennard. So the two of them playing in the same field, that's going to be fun to watch. Genesis Smith, by the way, at Arizona, pretty underrated. He's had multiple interceptions, but he's also somebody that can really be a really good defensive player in the secondary that can help out alongside with Derwin James, because R.J. Mickens has really taken the next strides up to be a shutdown safety. And here's the other thing, Travis Burke, you know what's funny about it is he's built almost as similarly as Joe Alt, 6'8" and 3/4. Well, Joe Alt is 6'8" and 5/8. They're tall guys. That's what Jim Harbaugh loves. So I think the Chargers, and this is why that Justin Herbert, he's under this immense amount of pressure because he's got to get it done this year. There's no sitting around. And they've addressed 4 of the 8 picks with offensive line. So that is ideal for depth piece. That's ideal for really strong defensive capabilities there. And offensively with the offensive line, this is finally going to give Justin Herbert the help he needs. And now he's got a really good running rotation. They can maybe bring back Keenan Allen if they choose to do so, because there's plenty of free agents out there, and there may be some different moves. So I really love with a lot of teams' picks, and like I said, I think because Justin now has a foundation, and that's what Jim Harbaugh does in a couple years, build foundations and make it all work. And I think the Chargers can be primed for that because the Broncos won the division last year. The Chiefs ended up going and getting really impactful players to start now, and the Raiders are trying to build for a healthier foundation. They're not in a win now moment, but they could certainly end up winning more games than what they did last year. So everything is good in the AFC West, and I think, for the Chargers, it's their opportunity. And to me, if you are Justin Herbert and you know the pressure's on your back, the one way that you can quiet the noise is you got to make it to a Super Bowl. Because to me, you go into the AFC, you go in, you win in the wild card, you win in the divisional, you win in the AFC championship. Because if you think about it, look at how that affected Peyton Manning. Because he wasn't winning for quite some time until they got the coach, they got the foundation, they got exactly the pieces, and the Colts, all of it equated to playoff wins and a Super Bowl. So if you're still on this Peyton Manning journey ride, that's what it's going to consist of. And that is the only way Justin Herbert can silence the opposing crowd. Go make it to a bowl. Because if you lose again in the wild card, people are going to have questions. And certainly Charger fans will have questions too. But I think it'll cure everything if Justin does that. But that's what you cross your fingers and you hope. All right, we got an exciting episode here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. We're back at it again tomorrow. Tune in. We'll see you guys here tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the night, and we'll see you all soon.